Okay, it's time now for an update on the latest business news. And for that, I'm joined here on set by Yuka Royer from our business desk. And Yuka, we're starting with an historic deal. Eurozone nations have finally reached an agreement, to get Greece out of its long-running bailout programme. 8
years of bailout programme. Marathon talks in Luxembourg continued into the early hours of Friday due to last-minute resistance by Germany. The deal was needed to allow Greece to safely come out of its third and final bailout programme in August and finally return to market financing. Solange Moujan reports.
Ringing in the end of the Greek debt crisis. That's what Eurozone ministers say they've accomplished after they agreed on the final elements of what's been an 8-year bailout programme. A hard-fought compromise as talks went into the wee hours, but one that Europe's economy commissioner said is monumental.
Firstly, it's an historic moment for Greece because 8 years of reforms and sacrifices are coming to an end. It's also a final point. It's a symbolic moment in an existential crisis for our single currency.
The deal lays out how Greece can re-enter the bonds market at the end of its final bailout program on August 20th. To do so successfully, Greece needs to prove to investors that its debt is manageable. And to help that process along, 19 Eurozone ministers agreed to push back the repayment of 96 billion euros in loans by 10 years, as well as give Greece a 15 billion euro injection. That adds to the some 275 billion it's received since the crisis broke in 2010. Greece will also be able to get cash payments of 600 million euros every 6 months until 2022. A deal that for the nation's finance minister will give Greece the cushion and security it needs to promote growth.
It is the end of the Greek crisis. I think that it has all the building blocks there to leave the programme with confidence.
To make the deal possible, Greek lawmakers pushed through a batch of austerity measures. This despite protests. And the nation will remain under the watchful eye of its creditors, long after this summer's bailout conclusion.
Turning to global trade now, and the European Union's retaliatory tariffs on 2.8 billion euros worth of US goods have come into effect. The import duties target iconic American products such as bourbon, jeans and motorcycles. They're a tit-for-tat response to Donald Trump's decision to impose new tariffs on European steel and aluminium. Some distilleries in the US, especially small ones, are worried that they will lose out to competitors.
So a $50 bottle of whiskey in Europe now, instead of being 50 euros, would be closer to 62.50, and that's a big change in price. 25% price increase is going to put us really expensive compared to other products that are already available in Europe, made by either European producers or Indian or even Japanese producers.
The United States trade disputes between the EU as well as with China are continuing to weigh on investor sentiment. Here in Europe, markets were in the red across the board, as you can see at the open, with Paris's CAC 40 down 1%, London's FTSE off by almost 1%, and DAX, Germany's DAX, down almost 1.5%. Asian stocks mostly traded lower as well earlier, with Tokyo's Nikkei down 0.8%. Now some more of the business headlines for you at this hour. And Airbus has warned it will consider leaving Britain if it leaves the European Union without a deal on future trade. It's the strongest warning yet to come from the plane maker over the impact of Brexit. Airbus makes wings for all its passenger jets in the UK. It says softer plans for a transition period up to the end of 2020 are still too short for the company to adapt its supply chain. The US Federal Reserve says that all of the 35 largest banks in the country are strong enough to survive an economic shock and keep on lending. The assessment comes after the first round of the central bank's annual stress tests, which started after the 2008 financial crisis. The tested banks all have at least $50 billion in assets and would survive even if hit with a severe financial crisis and global recession. Brazil's top labor court has ruled in favor of workers at state-controlled Petrobras in a wage dispute. The case centers around the firm's compensation policy since 2007. Workers argued that the payments tied to special work arrangements such as night shifts and hazardous work should be excluded from that policy. The court's ruling could cost the world's most indebted oil company a further $4 billion. Now, here in Paris, the pioneering electric car sharing system Autolib is finished. Local authorities officially ended their contract with the Bolloré group, which operates the scheme. Launched in 2011, Autolib has seen its user numbers dwindle. Problems with booking and parking and poor conditions of the cars, coupled with competition from ride-hailing services such as Uber, turned users away from them. The Bolloré Group is now facing accumulated losses of almost €300 million by 2023. The company says it will challenge that contract termination in court.
OK, Yuka Royer with the latest business news. Thank you very much.